Let's talk about how to overlay 2 or more instruments in a frequency analyzer in Reaper for free. I'm Keith from No Label, No Producer, No Limits.com. Let's dive right in. Okay, let's suppose you have a kick drum and a bass guitar and you want to overlay them on a frequency analyzer so you can make some EQing decisions. Here's how to do that. The first thing I'm going to do is double click down here in the track control panel and create a new track in an empty spot. We'll label it Spectral Analyzer, just SA is fine, and click on the Effects button. We'll type in the beginning of the word spectral, and I like this Psyche Spectral Analyzer Beta. Double click to add it. And let's float the window so we have it available to see at all times. Now we go to the Route button and click it and uncheck this send to the master. We don't want to hear this, we just want to send things to it. Now we can add receives to this in a variety of ways. I'm just going to go up here and drag the kick drum from the Route button to the Route button of the Psyche. And you can see it says audio 1 and 2 to audio 1 and 2. So now our kick drum is routed through here and we should be able to see that. I want to turn this button, the sum button here, to where it doesn't show some unnecessary stuff. So click it until you just see one line on the kick drum. Now, how do we get the bass guitar there? Let's do it a different way. Click on the Route button, click Add New Receive, and let's find the bass master. There's the bass master. But this time, instead of audio 1 and 2 to audio 1 and 2, we'll go audio 1 and 2 to audio 3 and 4. Now that should come in here. Channel 2 will be 3 and 4. Now there you have the kick and the bass guitar overlaid. I like to set this at a 3 dB per octave slope so that it gives a more straight line, and smooth it out some, maybe 80% or so, and make a longer time here so that we can slow things down and take a longer look. Okay, so there's channels 1 and 2. Channel 1 is the kick, channel 2 is the bass. I can turn them on and off. There's all kinds of changes you can make to the theme and whatnot, and I'll show you the one that I like. I like it set up like this. I've changed a couple of the colors here, but we've still got the kick and the bass guitar coming in. So one thing you might want to do if you're working with kick and bass guitar is focus in on the low end. These frequencies from 20 Hertz to 80 Hertz are fairly close together. So we can right-click down here at 20 Hertz and drag across up to about 300 Hertz. And it will spread that area out so we can focus on it here. Let's take a look. And I'm going to show you the freeze control as well. So I froze the audio by hitting this freeze button, and you can see that there's some overlap between the kick drum and the bass guitar. If we made this bell curve here, there's a boost on the kick drum at about 40 Hertz. If we made it a little narrower bandwidth, we would have some more room for the bass guitar and it might come through a little bit better. We can unfreeze it by clicking the button again and get back to our regular scaling by right-clicking in the center somewhere. I have it saved as a chain. If I wanted to add another instrument, let's say this guitar master, I could just drag it down here. And instead of to 1 and 2, I would go to, see, we used 3 and 4, so 5 and 6. And now the guitars are in this frequency analyzer, and I can turn them off and on here. But I wanna stay, wanna hit the road and feel the wind upon my face, my mind. This video is brought to you by the Home Recording Mentorship program, which helps you take your song ideas and turn them into good sounding recordings. Information is below the video. Okay, let's delete that puppy and I'll show you a different way to add it. That's very useful if you want to compare reference mixes. Now I have a bunch of reference mixes up in here, Audio Slave, Sheryl Crow, Sean Colvin, etc. And I don't have them routed to the master, I have them all turned off to the master. And then below that is my master, my pseudo master for this mix. All of my music and vocals come up through this master. So these are my first 7 tracks. So let's go to the action menu, action list, and I'm going to type Spectrum again. And you see this Load Spectrum Lua. Double click on it, and we have it added. And it has automatically added our top level tracks. So in other words, anything that is not in a folder underneath, but is on the top level. And that happens to be my reference mixes and my master. So we can compare the frequency content of all these different songs. Here we go. But I wanna stay, wanna hit the road and feel the wind upon my face, my mind. Instead of living this old life. Here's my mix, TOL master. It stands for This Old Lie, compared to Audio Slave. But I wanna stay, wanna hit the road and feel the wind upon my face, my mind. Instead of living this old life. This trip of ours has been planned for months. This is a very useful setup for comparing reference mixes. Once again, actions, action list, type in Spectrum, load it, and it will load this plugin down here and will pull the top level tracks that you have. So if you have it set up like I do, then it's going to work like this. If you've watched the video to this point, maybe you found it valuable. So it makes sense to like, subscribe, share, and comment in order to keep the channel going. And make sure you check out the information below the video to links to my home recording mentorship program. Okay, there's how you overlay a couple of different instruments on a frequency analyzer in Reaper with JS plugins for free. For now, I'm Keith from No Label, No Producer, No Limits.com. See you soon. Bye-bye.